Michigan, which is the state the president just gave that speech in, is, of course, a state that he won 4 years ago. It is clearly a must-win again in November to have a chance of defeating Donald Trump. And the president made clear that that is his plan tonight.
There's been a lot of speculation lately. What's Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? Here's my answer. I am running, and we're going to win. I'm not going to change that. I'm the nominee of the Democratic Party, the only Democrat or Republican who has beaten Donald Trump ever. And I'm going to beat him again. I know him. Donald Trump is a loser.
That speech happening this evening on a very packed day for the president earlier in the day on a tense call with congressional Democrats. He said, I'm going to go out, let people touch me, poke me, ask me questions. And today, as he got back into retail politicking, there were flashes of Joe Biden, the veteran campaigner.
My dad used to say, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. And that's what it's all about.
A large part of the case that the president's been making to voters, as he did last night in that press conference, is pretty straightforward. It goes like this. Just look at how the American economy has roared back since he took the reins during the aftermath of COVID, a recession, and a supply crisis.
We've made so much progress. Think about it. Think about where we are economically relative to the rest of the world. Name me a world leader who wouldn't want to trade places with our economy. We've created over 800,000 manufacturing jobs, 1.5 million jobs. I mean, so things are moving.
And he's not wrong. For months, experts have been calling the U.S. economy, these are not partisan folks, these are just people that analyze this stuff for a living, calling the U.S. economy the envy of the world. It's grown at a far faster rate than any other large developed economy on earth. In fact, the World Bank last month not only said that the Biden-era American economy was the world's strongest, which it is, it also concluded that the entire global economy is in better shape because of the strength of the American recovery. There's huge spillover effects because the U.S. has been a kind of tentpole for global post-COVID recovery. When you consider where we stood in 2020, Biden's tenure has been the most successful macroeconomic stewardship of any president in my lifetime. And many of those economic successes have come through in headlines in just the past 3 weeks, so of course, you may have missed them for some reason. Just yesterday, new government data showed that inflation was cooling beyond almost all economists' expectations. Prices on everything from cars to groceries are down. Rent, crucially, which has been a real source of pain for people and growing really quickly, is finally stabilizing. Rent is finally stabilizing. For the first time in 4 years, overall prices are down last month on a month-to-month basis, not rising at a slower clip, but actually declining. The Fed now might even cut interest rates before the election. A few days earlier, a study highlighted by the New York Times concluded that America's so-called left-behind counties, the once great manufacturing centers and other distressed places that struggled mightily at the start of the century, have staged a remarkable comeback. In the last 3 years, they added jobs and new businesses at their fastest pace since Bill Clinton was president. So the economic growth is not just helping big cities, it's not just helping urban professionals. In regions like Bay County, Michigan, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, where President Biden was born, the job markets are strong. Wages are up in real terms. And today, markets rally, with all three major stock indexes closing near their all-time highs. And much of this is thanks to Joe Biden, the president, and his economic policy agenda. A man who entered office facing a really difficult situation and a whole bunch of hard choices. The Biden White House has not just addressed cyclical concerns like the high unemployment when they took over during COVID and the subsequent inflation. It's actually moved America away from the worst excesses of the economic model that dominated for decades, a model that was based on low-wage work, huge outsourcing, and gutting the American manufacturing base. Biden has improved on all of those. Inequality has shrunk. Wages at the bottom are up the most. He's also been building towards a green transition heavy industry. All of this is a record. Like I said, it's the best economic management of any president in my lifetime. It's a record to justly be proud of. And it has been an enduring obsession of mine and this show that the Biden presidency has delivered all of this, and his approval rating hovers around 37%. That's not a good number. That's on par with Jimmy Carter and George H.W. Bush, who both lost their re-election bids, but crucially, who are presiding over very weak economies. They had nowhere near as strong a record on the merits to run on as Biden does. And so what's the deal? There's a lot of things we've talked about on the show. There is one seemingly straightforward explanation, which is that a lot of people, roughly 2/3 of voters in recent polls, think that Biden is too old to serve another term as president. That acts as a kind of anchor. And that perception colors everything. And it explains in some ways why so many Democrats are so worried about Biden at the top of the ticket. They basically reason that if you have this kind of record as a president and you're still down the polls, is there any hope? And the irony, of course, is that this exact same set of facts also explains Biden's perspective, where he says, look, I have a unique set of skills I brought to bear on the presidency, 50 years of experience. I've accomplished a whole bunch of things that no one said we could get done that would have been difficult for anyone else to accomplish by dint of the fact that I've literally been doing it for 52 years. In fact, he said as much in that press conference last night.
And what I realized was my long time in the Senate had equipped me to have the wisdom to know how to deal with the Congress, to get things done. We got more major legislation passed that no one thought would happen. And I want to finish it, to get that finished.
So that is the conundrum in a nutshell. At least it's the challenge, if nothing else. The president has been good at governing, at getting legislation done on economic management and stewardship and leadership. In part, I think, because he has more experience than anyone else. But also, his advantage is also his biggest political liability. Even against an opponent who's just slightly younger, has 34 felony convictions, and tried to pull off a violent coup to stay in office and end the constitutional republic.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.